right, everybody. I am so excited to be with you today because we are going to be talking about audience growth, retention, and getting yourself to the place in your business where you know that you are engaging your audience. And that's where all of that nurturing sequence happens. So, a lot of times we go into wanting our customers to do the heavy lifting for us, meaning they're not taking action, they're not listening to what I'm saying. But you know what? You're the one in charge of giving more than you take, right? So let's talk about audience growth. I'm going to also be talking about one thing at the very end, which is the new program that I have that is registration is closing at the very end of today for the beta program called Styled to the Nines. I'm going to put it up on the screen really quickly just in case you can't stay to the very end. But it is called Styled to the Nines, and it is a 6-week group coaching program. You can register until 11:55 p.m. Pacific time tonight at collegeofstyle.com. I'm going to be going into all of the specifics very, very soon. So just stay tuned after I go through this specific, I would call it a webinar, I guess. We're going to be talking all about the specifics for this group coaching program. So let's make sure that we talk about what we're talking about today, which is effective audience growth, engagement, and retention strategies, which is part of my first slide. So let's talk about audience growth. When we think about audience growth, sometimes it happens to be that we're talking about just followers, just numbers on a vanity metric scale. And a lot of times that doesn't really help you, right? So we want to make sure that if you're thinking about audience growth, we're really thinking about numbers, right? But how those numbers help you can mean different things to different people. So if you're joining me from either YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook, my name is Dr. Sandra Colton-Medici, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to be saying that a lot because this is a few slides that I've got prepared for today. But I want you to know that I am here for you. If you have any questions after this is over, you can email me at sandra@collegeofstyle.com, or you can send me a DM on any of those specific platforms. One of the things that I absolutely love about talking about audience growth is that when you think about your audience, it is technically your ideal customer avatar, but sometimes it's other people. Right? There's always people who are in your communities that you may or may not have thought were going to be part of. Whoa, that came on a little fast. That sometimes you may or may not have thought were going to be part of your community. And so you might be tailoring content to who you think is in your community when you might have other people inside of your community that may or may not respond to that content. So sometimes audience growth may or may not look like you want it to, but I definitely think that it's interesting to think about the group members that you have in your that are following your specific social media profiles, or if they're in your specific communities. I'm going to go live as well on TikTok right now too. So I'm excited to bring in more people as we talk about this. So let's get to the first slide on audience growth. One of the things that I absolutely think is essential, which is why I just started going live on TikTok, is using social media tools that are being promoted. And if you are thinking about your audience, you want to be in the places where those social media platforms are already targeting and already promoting certain specific features. Now, I talk about TikTok specifically because a lot of people are chasing what TikTok has done. And I don't necessarily think that it is certainly new, because we had Vine, we had Periscope, we have a lot of different social media platforms that have utilized video to get their messaging to their audiences. But I do think that it's interesting that a lot of social media platforms are copying and or using certain features and tweaking from TikTok. So when you think about certain social media tools that are being promoted, your audience growth is going to be specifically tied to that. It means that when you are um, utilizing social media features that are not being promoted, you may or may not be able to reach the people that you want to reach. Okay, so think about it that way. Think about if you want to reach the people that you think are out there for your business, your products and services, but you're not utilizing the tools and the features that are being promoted by those social media platforms, then you're probably not going to, at least organically, not going to reach the people that you want, right? It means that you're probably only going to be reaching the people that you want if you're paying to advertise. So if you want to reach people in an organic fashion, then it means that you need to start reaching out via those tools that they are promoting right now. So when you think about, let me just move this here. When you think about all of the different things that people are promoting right now, you are thinking about TikToks, you're thinking about Instagram Reels, you're thinking about YouTube Shorts. You may even be promoting your podcast because social audio is really hot right now. You may be thinking about Twitter Spaces. You might be thinking about Clubhouse, all of the different features that people are promoting right now on their social media platforms is what you should be implementing into your content creation. All right, so the next one is if you're thinking about maximum growth, then you're thinking about posting often. And I know that this can lead to a lot of burnout. So I definitely want to put that caveat out there is that when you think about maximum growth, that means posting often. And the only reason that I say that is because if you want maximum growth, then the more content you put out there, the more chances people have to see it. That doesn't mean that it's going to be great content. It doesn't mean that people are going to be excited about your content. It just means that you have more opportunities to see that content in the wild, right? It has more chances to be out there for people to see. Does that mean it's great? No. Does it mean that that quality over quantity is best? Yeah, but that doesn't mean that if you put out a ton of content that you won't have results. And I'm definitely proof of this because I had, I think back in October, I did an TikTok growth challenge where I grew my my TikTok to over 10,000. Right. And now I think it's closer to 14,000. Right. But when you look at that, yes, it works. If you post, I think I was posting 8 times a day. Right. But do those followers equal conversion? No. Right. So you need to think about that when you think about posting a ton of content. That does not mean that it equates to converting your followers, right? It just means that more people have the opportunity to see it. Okay. So thinking about audience growth, I'm going to back up a little bit to the ones that I mentioned previously, which is using social media tools that are being promoted by the platforms right now, posting often for maximum growth, and your audience growth does not always correlate to conversions. Okay. If you're joining me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter or YouTube right now, or even TikTok, I would definitely like to say hello and reintroduce myself. My name is Dr. Sandra Colton-Medici. I'm going to be talking about, we just talked about audience growth. Now we're going to be talking about audience engagement. And if you stick around, we are going to be talking about my program that you can register for. It's called Style to the Nines, and you can go to collegeofstyle.com to register for that. And let's get to what we all are here for, which is engagement, right? Audience engagement is one of those things that if you have people talking and not just you talking to them, but them talking back to you, then you can kind of gauge like, hey, this is hitting or this is missing. If you just are in this one-way conversation, then you don't have anything giving you a sign, a signal. Well, I guess you do have a signal. Like if nobody's talking back to you, then I guess you have a signal that maybe people aren't paying that much attention, but it really does help that people talk back or converse with you with audience engagement. So the first thing that I want to talk about is tagging people and tracking that, because tagging people is a great feature. right? You can tag people in almost all of your social media posts. But the one thing that you have to be very, very careful with is don't over tag. And if you're going to tag people in certain posts, it needs to be, number one, relevant to what they want to learn about. And number two, or I guess what they're, what industry they're in. Or number two, tracking who you're actually tagging, right? So if you are tagging people on almost every single post that you put out, great. If you are tagging people and not tracking who you're tagging every single time, then you might over tag some of the same people, right? And you do not want to over tag people, because then it becomes like you're spamming them, right? It becomes like you're just willy-nilly with it and like, oh, let me just put in this person, right? And sometimes if you're in a Facebook group, you don't have a chance to tag everyone, right? Some people have turned off their settings. Sometimes their preferences are turned off, so you cannot tag them. So sometimes it's more of a matter of like looking through your followers and trying to tag people who are relevant to certain posts because they're in a certain industry or because they've asked a certain question, or I should say, and then making sure that if you've tagged someone and you go to tag them again, and they have taken that tag preference off, that you reach out to them and say, hey, I just tagged you in this post, but it didn't allow me to tag you. Number one, do you want me to tag you in post? And number two, do you prefer that I just send you a DM? Right? Because learning the preferences about your communities, even if they're just following you online and not in an actual group or a Facebook community or something like that, knowing the preferences is something that is going to benefit you in the long term. So tagging people in your posts is going to expand your reach, and tracking the people that you're tagging is also going to help you not over tag those people. Okay. The next one is using polls and extended poll conversations. So what I mean by that is engagement is really, noticeable when you use polling. When you use a polling feature. If you use a polling feature, most of the time, you will get some sort of response, right? And even if you're using the tagging, you'll get a response probably from the people that you're tagging. So it's really great to use the polling feature because most people have an opinion on everything. And sometimes in your polls, you can actually put, I'm just here for the results, so that even if they don't have an opinion, they can put something in there so that you have people who will be notified when the poll ends, right? So the extended poll conversations, that is really interesting because I saw someone on LinkedIn do this really, really well. They actually created a poll and then put into the comments, and I actually did a YouTube video about this. They put into the comments, here's what I've seen about, statistics about the poll. Tell me what you would like to hear. And then the next post that they had, they did a recap of the poll. And they said, this is what happened in the poll. And then they put in the comments the category or whatever of the topic that they were going to talk about in their next blog post. And then they had a third post that they talked about. They said, I want to know what questions you want answered inside of this post so that when I write this blog post, you can have your questions answered. So when you poll and when you have engagement in a poll, it doesn't need to stop there. Yes, some social media platforms will inform the people who have taken the poll that the poll has ended. And this is do you want to see the results of the poll? Yes, a lot of people have those in their notifications. Do people always go in to see the results of the poll? Maybe not. But it's very interesting to extend the conversation past the poll so that it's not you relying on the social media platform to say, did you take a chance at looking at the poll results? It's you informing them and saying, I know that you answered the question for this poll. These are the results. Are you surprised? What would you think, would happen if this was the case? Having that extended conversation is going to increase your engagement. It's going to extend the life of the conversation. And that's what you want when you're asking people to engage with you. You want to have a conversation and you want to learn more about your followers. Now, another part of engagement is creating a schedule that you can stick to. Right? Because it's great to be like super gung-ho when you have a community and you've got a new social media profile and you're constantly churning out content. But if you can't keep up with that, then people will fall off. right? They're with you until they're not with you, right? So, creating a schedule so that you're able to engage with people in real time when it's convenient, not necessarily just for you, but for your family, your home life, whomever that you are cohabitating with. If you have a 9 to 5, making sure that you're doing this on off hours so that it makes sense, but that you're always giving people kind of a set schedule, right? There's an influencer, I think her name's Vanessa Lau, and she's one of the only people that I think actually posts YouTube videos on Sundays, right? So people get used to seeing information come out from her on Sundays. So if you are putting out information and creating content for your following and you don't have a set schedule that makes sense for you and your life and your wishes and your goals and all your journey, then that doesn't make sense because people will be kind of all over the place, right? They won't know when you're posting. They won't know, oh, she hasn't gotten back to me because she normally doesn't until after 5. Like, people understand and they get used to the framework that you're giving, right? Even if you're not telling them I post on, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, people get it into their schedules, right? So make sure that you create a schedule that you can stick to. So just to go back, if you are just joining us either on TikTok, on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, or Twitter, just make sure that you have these in the back of your head. So when we're talking about audience engagement, I'm talking about tagging people and tracking who you're tagging, using polls and extended poll conversations, and creating a schedule that you can stick to. Going all the way back to the very beginning of what we were talking about today is audience growth and using social media tools that are being promoted right now to make sure that you are getting the organic reach that you want without having to pay for ads or things like that. Posting often does help you with maximum growth. It also has the caveat of being really, really exhausting and not very sustainable. And also, even if you have audience growth, that does not always correlate into conversions. Okay, so I talked about this earlier, that I'm going to be speaking about the Style to the Nines social media elevated design and messaging group coaching program. If you cannot to stay to the end, make sure you go over to collegeofstyle.com, register today. Today is the last day to register and spaces are limited. It is a beta program, so it is a very reduced investment of $300. So make sure that you go to collegeofstyle.com today. I think 11:55 p.m. Pacific time is when doors are closing. So don't miss out. Make sure that you get in there while you can, just because it is a small group that I'll be working with. And I definitely want you guys to take advantage of that. All right. So getting back to what we're talking about, the next one is audience retention. Now, audience retention is something that, I think about this in the same way that I think about performing. Like, I was on stage for the better half of my life, and I feel like when you are on stage, there's so many distractions. And when you think about social media, there are so many distractions, whether it's notifications coming in, emails coming up on your phone, reminders coming in, different things from your calendar popping up. There's so many different distractions when you're on social media, right? So audience retention is always interesting because when I think about performing, it's kind of like, did the concession close down early enough because I can hear them, putting the sodas back into the refrigerator? Or did the lights go on when they were supposed to because I can hear everybody's footsteps as they're getting onto the stage? Or did, the curtain open or close when it was supposed to? Like, I can think about these all at the same time as I look at social media and think of, like, all these different things are supposed to be happening simultaneously. But do we all work the same? No. Do we all have the same kind of focus? No. Do we all want to be part of like 50 different groups because we have that kind of time to commit to communities? Probably not, right? We're committing to like 1 or 2 different platforms, and we're really good at one, but we're kind of trying to like bring this other one along, right? So when you think about audience retention, think about this: creating content on topics that are specific to your audience's interest. Now, a lot of times people create groups, and they create groups around what they're interested in. right? Not about what their audience is interested in. So it's really important to ask questions of your audience and look at what people are engaging with to really decide what they're interested in and what they're not. Having one-on-one conversations with your audience is like the gold standard, right? If you can talk to people to find out what they want, that's the best thing you can do. If you can poll them with a survey or some sort of questionnaire, do that. Or you can literally just look at your metrics, right? Forming relationships is the best way to have audience retention. If you know people and you are able to speak to people, then there's some sort of like camaraderie there. There's some sort of relationship, whether it's teacher student or colleague to colleague or bestie to bestie, whatever that is for you. Forming relationships is the best way to retain your audience, and having real conversations. Not just ones that are supposed to sell something, is another way to retain your audience. As long as you are having real conversations about what your audience needs. Maybe your audience does need what you sell, so that wouldn't be a bad conversation to have. But if you're always selling something, then that is not necessarily a conversation that people always want to get into. It's kind of like when people see door-to-door salespeople come to their door and they're like, yeah, I know, I can see it coming, and I don't really have the time to have this conversation right now. Like, people see it coming, and if they think of you as someone who's always selling to them, then they're not going to want to have that conversation, because either they've bought it from you before and they didn't like it, or they bought it from you before and they're kind of like, yeah, I don't need any more of that, or they're just not really willing to have that conversation with you, right? So knowing that having relationships is key to audience retention, and having conversations that don't sell every single time will make sure that you have a back and forth instead of a like, hey, did you want my product kind of a conversation. All right. So the other one that I wanted to talk about is holding yourself accountable to your members of your followers or your groups, and also holding members accountable. Right. So not just holding them accountable for like paying their membership dues, but holding them accountable if they are asked to contribute, right? If you're asking people to contribute content to your group or your community or something like that, holding them accountable, right? And the easiest way to do this is to send out an email and say, hey, I noticed that you haven't had a chance to open up this email in quite a while. It's been maybe 6 months. Would you like to remain on our email list? Right? Because there's no hard feelings there, because you're saying, hey, I get it. You're busy. I'm busy. You haven't had a chance to contribute. So maybe you take people off of your list. And people will either write you back and say, hey, I'm not really feeling it anymore, or I've moved on, or yeah, no, I'm reading them, or I'm trying to participate. I just got really backed up, or whatever it might be, right? Giving them an out helps people know, like, hey, I know you're not reading these, and I know that I want to have people engaged in my community, right? So giving people a chance to say yes or no, like take me out of your list, or, maybe they just don't write back, is a great way to be like, yeah, it's non-confrontational. You get it, and people move on. And the best thing about letting people have that moment and saying yes or no, or just not responding at all, is that if you take them off of your list, and they're not engaging anyways, then that makes your engagement go up, right? Because the fewer people that you have, but if they're more active, your engagement's going up, right? And it's not always, like I said at the beginning, we're talking about audience growth. Audience growth does not equal conversions, and audience growth does not equal engagement. So having the right members inside of your group or following you is really important, because that helps you have higher engagement and higher conversions, because people who are interacting with you have more, what do they call it? Skin in the game, right? They have more skin in the game to make things happen. Now, I am going to be that was the last one that I was going to talk about as far as audience retention. So I wanted to talk about the brand new program that is actually closing the cart tonight, which is at collegeofstyle.com. If you want to up level your social media content and start converting your customers with strategic messaging. So I'm going to share my screen really quick so that you can see exactly what you'll see on excuse me, on the page for you when you visit collegeofstyle.com. Now, on the very beginning page, you'll see it's a 6-week group coaching program. It is social media, elevated design, and messaging. And in those 6 weeks, the program aims to help you start to attract your ideal customer with scroll stopping images and messaging that converts. As you can see right now, you are going to see a countdown right there. It says 11 hours left. So if you're watching this on a replay, today is May 3rd. Okay, that's when we're doing this live. If you're watching this on a replay and it's not May 3rd, which is a Tuesday, and you are seeing this and I'm saying it's 11 hours before the cart closes, before the doors close, then message me, because I do know that people do watch replays, and I don't want someone to miss out on working with me just because the cart has closed. We can figure out a way for you to work one-on-one with me. All right, so this is your time to stop the social scroll. Now, on here, it says breaking through the noise is hard with with so much distraction on social media platforms. Finding your voice, your cadence, and your consistency can also be elusive. But imagine if you could do this in 6 weeks, okay? Create social media posts that resonate with your audience and stop people from scrolling past your profile. Create captions that captivate your followers and nurture your community so that they trust you as an authority in your industry. Generate sales from your social media followers by crafting calls to action that convert followers into customers. And finally, show up online as your true, authentic self and use strategies to build and grow your online community. So these are the 6 I'm going to scroll through so you can see them. The 6 weeks that you will have. If you're on TikTok and you're not seeing this, go to collegeofstyle.com and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. A breakdown of what happens each week. Week 1 is social media and brand awareness, a breakdown of social media and how you can use platforms for brand awareness, a guided video of top social media platforms, an introduction to Canva, and a video tutorial on specific social media post types. There's also in that week a 1-hour group session where I'll be talking about all of this, and also 30 minutes of Q&A if people have questions that they haven't gotten answered. All right, week 2 is developing your design aesthetic. Week 3 goes over elements that engage your ideal customer. Week 4 goes over caption this, convert your followers. Week 5 is channel-specific conversation starters. And week 6 is intuitive design with AI in mind. And I talked about this before, but it is a beta. My chair is squeaking. It is a beta program, so it's a reduced investment of $300. So you would click on that Buy Now button. There's also fast action bonuses and a whole frequently asked questions section. And that's what you'll see on the collegeofstyle.com page right now. There's 11 hours left. Today is May 3rd if you're watching this on a replay. And there's 11 hours left for you to get into this program. So what I would love, let me remove that real quick. All right. So what I would love is for you, if you have any questions about anything that I've talked about today, whether it's audience growth, audience engagement, audience retention, or the Style to the Nines group coaching program, definitely send me an email. You can send it to sandra@collegeofstyle.com. You can also find all of my contact information on any of the social profiles for Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Pinterest, our shop at shopcollegeofstyle.com, and the College of Style website. You can see the email right there on the bottom of the page if you have any questions for me. I didn't see any comments come in while I've been talking, which has been quite a while. But I do want to let you know that I so appreciate you for joining me for this session. And if you have any questions, like I said, I am one DM away or one email away from answering those questions about either audience growth, audience engagement, audience retention, or the Style to the Nines 6-week group coaching program. My name again is Dr. Sandra Colton-Medici, and I so thank you for joining me today.